Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the weekly Old School Q&A. You'll notice we have a very, very, very packed couch this week. We have 7 people, including myself. All of these wonderful people have worked on tomorrow's update, The Theatre of Blood, and let's quickly introduce them. So we have Mod Rye, Mod Archie, who is actually a guest on the couch for the first time, I think, ever. Mod Kieran.
Yeah.
Hello. Mod Ash.
Hello.
Mod Curse.
Hello.
And Mod Ed. So, guys, of course, you've all had a very intimate relationship making Theatre of Blood. Is intimate the right word?
Intimate's probably
You've
the
worked
right
pretty
word.
close.
Where does
into
that
the game.
come from?
With whom?
With the maiden.
She's not a maiden then.
What have you all done specifically on Theatre of Blood? If you know. You looked at me as if you didn't know you did work.
Sorry, I got a bit distracted by
Thinking about the
into it
maiden.
with a maiden.
Yeah, well, what
We
have
all
you bought,
did.
mate?
Oh, are you starting with me?
Let's start with you.
Okay. So on the Theatre of Blood, I wrote most of the background story behind it, and development-wise, I developed the quest and one of the challenge rooms.
So I was the lead QA tester on it, and I dealt with quite a lot of the player playtesting, feedback and balancing of it.
I did most of the underlying infrastructure where you move from room to room and the menus for making parties. And the original code for 3 of the challenge rooms, although since I was on holiday when the player visit took place, the feedback and balancing of it was done by, I think, Kieran mostly.
Bringing that on to me then.
Yes.
So as Mod Ed said earlier, I'm going to use his choice of words. I'm the big boss man of the Theatre of Blood project.
So, she's gone now. So you're Verzik.
No, and she is a she. So that meant I had to do all the project management behind the scenes as well, making sure that everyone was aligned, working towards the same goal. But in terms of development, I developed the final boss, Lady Verzik. I did the Maiden of Sugadinty as well, which is the first challenge, and I did all the code for the rewards as well.
Maybe a year ago now, I think, I pitched Raids 2. It didn't have a name, it didn't have where it should be, a reason or anything really much else than a few kind of sloppy designed rooms with mechanics that hadn't yet shown their face in Old School that I thought would make a good addition to the game. I had a brief idea of what I wanted for rewards, and the team have done an amazing job of kind of polishing all of that and actually making it a real thing. So it's been almost a year and kind of.
I remember the first meeting. It was a tap review, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you just had like a big document of loads of different ideas for different room ideas, and we were like, damn, these sound like sick rooms. And basically at that point we decided, if we've got all these good ideas, we need to put them in something.
Yeah.
A sick room doesn't actually sound like a place you want to be.
Probably not, no.
Apart from the initial kind of design, there's been a little bit more in design, but not much. And then I did the influencer visit where we had a bunch of players in. Apart from that, I've been doing my other job, my normal job. It's been really nice to kind of watch this turn into what it is.
Cool. And then I've kind of been responsible for most of the environment art, so all but one of the boss rooms, the outside lobby bit that you had last week, some of the Mauritania coastline. And yeah.
You also designed.
You're really underselling
You
yourself.
also
I mean, you've done a lot more than that, right?
Oh yeah, I did do some design for
You designed
2 of
some
the
rooms.
bosses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here were some
Weapons were
sick
cool.
ideas Some from of my the boy weapons. Sausage
Some
Egg.
really good ideas. I was asking the team like who else wants to contribute, and then out of nowhere Rye was just like, "What about this?" And it was like a really well fleshed out design for a room that you're gonna get to see tomorrow.
Speaking of which, yes, tomorrow it's being released. I wanted to play a little game that we usually play whenever we do things that have kind of like combat involved. We've got a little graphic up as well, I believe, that Mod John has made. How long do you think it's going to take until the first full completion of the Theatre of Blood? From the release, how many hours and minutes do you think?
2 hours.
Excluding playtest.
Right. You think 2 hours? Let's go in order so that Mod John...
I'm saying dream team like Wooks and the lot. Yeah.
You think 2 hours?
Maybe 3, but.
Okay. Cool.
Be specific.
You need to pick a number so we write it down.
Okay. All right. 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. Mod Rye, what do you think?
I'm going to go with 5.5.
5.5. Okay.
3 hours 55 minutes.
Oh, what price is
You're right.
writing it? 3 hours and 55. Ash, what do you think?
I want,
Oh, okay, wait, Mod. Okay, we're slowing. We're going too quickly.
For what it's worth, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm very wrong, but
Very
just-
wrong.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I have faith in the players.
What was your guess?
3 hours 55 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. And Ash, what do you think?
I want to say 420.
4:20. It's 4 hours and 20 minutes is Ash's guess.
Sure.
Mod Curse.
I'll go for 3 hours and 47 minutes.
Mod Ed.
3 hours, 56 minutes.
Did you get that, Mod John?
No, you're gonna have to repeat it.
That's okay. Mod Curse, can you repeat that one more time?
Oh, 3 hours 47 minutes.
3 hours and 47 minutes is Mod Curse's guess. And Mod Ed?
3 hours, 56 minutes.
3 hours 47 and 3 hours 56.
Let's ask the chat.
Let's ask the chat. That's a good shout.
I see what number they've been typing.
And my guess will be 7 hours and 30 minutes, as the chat seems to insist.
No, 1 hour 13 seems to be the more common one.
That's a better one.
Of course, it might be impossible to complete.
That's true. What if it bugs? What if there's a blocker?
What if there's a fire next to the reward chest?
Well, if people look like they're about to complete it in a lower time than I'd guessed, then I could probably achieve a blocker.
We don't talk about that fire.
I'm sorry.
Fire is so embarrassing. We will never. Oh my god.
It's not too soon. It is last week marked
Ash, what was yours?
5 months.
4:20, 4 hours 20.
5
That's
months,
what I
I
meant.
gotta say too.
5 hours 30.
Well, thank you.
Brilliant. Right, okay. At the end of the stream, by the way, we do have a music medley of all 13 songs that are within the theatre for you all to listen to.
That's a long one then.
Yeah, we have a medley. It's about 8 minutes.
Cool.
Cool.
Oh, it's just sections of them then? 'cause
Yes, it's a little
I'd say
clap.
some of the tracks in nearly 13 minutes.
Oh yeah, but everybody seemed to enjoy Lady Verzik's song last week. There was a lot of positive feedback, and Ian, Mod E&T, as well as Mod Surma were very happy with that. We also had a competition for the login screen, and we closed that on Monday. So there's the times for the guesses real quick. Who do you think? I went really...
Why am I so far away from you guys?
Oh my god, yeah, you went quite low, haven't you?
Well, when they go low, we go high, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
The competition winner closed. It was closed on Monday, and we do actually have a winner. His name is A Scrub. Do we have that artwork that we put on screen? Yeah, his
Really?
The winner is A Scrub.
Really?
So congratulations to him. He was the one that was voted.
Which
Rat scrub.
What was his name?
A Scrub. His name was A Scrub.
Most of the people in the chat.
So that's going to be. Oh god. That's going to be the login screen right there on release tomorrow.
And we've got some custom icons for the flames going up it.
Yes, the flames have little icons in them. We like to change those whenever we do these big things, which is pretty good. What have we got? Like bats and blood and.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Both those things.
Congratulations to him. 12 months membership and an OSRS goodie bag for him.
Shame he's still a scrub.
On top of that, it's worth pointing out that in-game, there's actually a spectator feature that you can access while you're at the lobby of the theatre.
It's available in the lobby.
But it's also available outside of the lobby, as of course you need access to Mauritania to spectate, usually. There is a woman who lives in Lumbridge, I believe, and she also loiters around the Grand Exchange.
That's what she's into.
Around the Grand Exchange. We have pictures of her locations, if we can get that up as well, which if you do, for whatever reason, are unable to enter Mauritania, you can spectate fights in-game tomorrow.
Yep. The idea was that she would be able to explain not just, well, want to see a theatre, but to explain what Mauritania is, because not everyone who's familiar with RuneScape will necessarily know that, and what the theatre is for people who are not be following all the news posts. So that in future months, when people aren't talking about the theatre all the time, there'll still be some explanation for newer players who want to know what she's doing, and a chance for people to just casually kill a bit of time by having a look in her scrying orb.
Cool.
So yeah, I believe you have some pictures of her location.
We do have pictures of the location. We can just quickly get those up real quick. So that's her house in Lumbridge. It's upstairs in I want to say the general store.
It is the general store.
It's upstairs in the Lumbridge general store. That's where she lives. You can talk to her and get a little bit lore. And there's also the Grand Exchange. She'll be at the back near the Spirit Tree. You can go have a chat with her. She'll help you scry, and you can spectate your friends, spectate some streamers, see what they're doing, or just check a random party, I believe, as well.
I see in the chat it's been suggested that we could have done it with the Gypsy in Varrock. Thing is, well, firstly, at the Grand Exchange, it's a slightly more obvious place for loitering, and secondly, she wants to explain Mauritania from the point of view of someone who lived there under the vampires. She has a story if you feel like clicking through one of those, but you don't have to explain why she no longer lives in Mauritania. And for what it's worth, upstairs in the general store in Lumbridge doesn't exist at the moment. There's no floor up there. It's just a completely hollow shell of a 2-story building with nothing in the middle. So they've clearly built a bit of a middle floor and rented it out to her, probably quite cheap looking at it.
Cool. Right, final thing to announce, summer special still going on, 3 for 2, bonds, great. For the Theatre of Blood to come out tomorrow, may as well get 3 months worth of entertainment out of it, I think. So let's move straight on to questions. It's been 10 minutes, sorry. Thrubber asks, what happens with leeches in the theatre?
Oh, his name, Thrubber, right.
Thrubber.
Yes. Good name. What happens with them is that while we can't force you to contribute and try really hard to help your party, we just don't have to reward you very much if that's what you've been like. So if you go in there and you don't bother going into any of the combat arenas and you don't really achieve a darn thing other than maybe carrying stuff for your mates, then we will not expect to reward you very much, and your party will suffer a bit from having you around there not doing anything.
Okay.
So you don't want to take a leech in there.
Quickly worth just asking, did everybody put their aeroplane mode on the couch? Because the chat seemed to jump back, and I don't know if that was because somebody didn't turn off their phone.
I turned off
haven't.
entirely.
Do you want to maybe put your phone on airplane mode real quick? Everybody who hasn't,
think that's what it was.
airplane their phone so that the chat doesn't get deafened. And they won't be able to hear they won't even be able to hear the wonderful music that we're about to
Should've
play at
been
the
a
end of this
close-up for
stream,
that.
Medley. So let's just
Shame.
quickly
We need a
turn
shame
that off.
cam.
We do need a shame cam.
Yeah.
Very ashamed. There we go. Sorry, chat. There we go. It won't happen again. The next question's from Dang, which is not his name, but he had an inappropriate name. Can I bring faults to carry supplies with me to solo the theatre?
Well, they'd kind of count as leeches in that respect. So yes, you can, and you will not expect to be so well rewarded from having people in there who are not doing anything. So you are welcome to bring 5 accounts of your own if you can control all 5 of them simultaneously to fight the bosses. Now, it's worth noting we don't scale the stats of the bosses based on how many people come in, but we nevertheless do keep track of whether people in the party were leeching in that regard. And if you go in there just carrying stuff, we'd count you as a leech.
I would say it's not possible.
I would like to see it done. I think maybe if you were an octopus and had that many hands.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, if we all have to turn our phones off, how do we play mobile while we're... Oh, well.
Well, I know, it's a nightmare, but some sacrifices sadly have to be made at times. The next question's from a guy with pants. With Theatre of Blood, these are the real names. These are the actual questions.
I think what's happened is when you sent that little sheet around to the whole team to add questions to,
Yeah.
people made up names. Or
No,
changed
these are
the
real
names.
names. I
that's
put
a
that
legit
name. That's an
name.
actual guy. That was on Twitter.
When I gather questions, I would have just said guy. That would have been
Really? Sorry. You're
No, I'm not-
you
I'm
give me
not
feedback on the
criticising.
stream. Are you criticising the way that I host on the stream? he comes on the sofa one time.
I love that.
And he thinks he, no, okay. Oh my God!
What's the question?
Don't joke about that.
Moving on.
Moving on. A guy with pants asks, with Theatre of Blood, have you looked at the balance? How have you done the balancing of the drops? Has anything previously that we've done affected the way that we've done the balancing? And how is the balancing? Is it very much so in favour of getting rewards over time, or is it a very small income and you get a big bash when you get the big reward?
So the significant proportion of your reward will come from the unique table. The general loot table that's a very detailed close-up.
Twitch emote. I want that Twitch emote.
Why are you wearing sunglasses indoors?
These lights are really bright.
Right. It's much better for the head. So yeah, you'll find that the normal loot should just generally cover your expenses for the most part. You also get a little bit of profit out of it, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
Cool. So you're aiming for those spicy big drops, the scythe.
Definitely.
Yeah, the major factor that impacts your chances and the value of the loot you get is actually on how many times you've died. So you will suffer for how many times you die throughout the raid. So the better you and your team do, the better chance of getting good loot you're going to have, and the better regular loot you'll get as well. That also impacts the chances of getting the pet, because there is a pet, And it also impacts your chances of getting an elite clue as well, because you can get elite clues.
Cool. That was actually my next question from Mendax. It was Mendax. It was, does death affect drops? But
yes.
it expanded a little bit further, and it was, what was the reasoning behind making the theatre unsafe death for hardcore Iron Men?
It was a question, and all of us said yes.
Cool.
And then that was it.
Which then expanded to, can you elaborate on the death mechanics, and can you log out in the theatre? Can you teleport out? How does that work?
Shall I elaborate on death?
Go on that, definitely.
Okay. So, death in the theatre is not safe, and that's important to us because we've made quite a few things lately where you go in and if you die, it's safe, you get your stuff back. And we don't really want to make this another one of them where you can just experiment with the bosses, trial and error, without any real risk involved. We want you to actually suffer when you die, so that it means more than just, oh, well, let's go in again and have another go. And of course, if death is dangerous, that implicitly means that a hardcore Iron person is going to suffer too. I will be curious to see how many go in there, especially in the first few days. Respect to them that do, completely understand why they might not want to.
And that and that close-up Verzik is totally staring at you.
Well, I suspect a lot of people are on a stream, but anywho, death. If you die in the non-combat bits of the theatre, you know, the corridors between where you get in and where the fighting starts.
I'd be impressed, firstly.
Well, yeah, it begs the question what you're playing at, but if you do die there, I think we do treat you as having died, because, you know, how the heck are you dying? We will penalise you for that. But if you log out in those areas, we don't treat it as a death. We will try to restore you safely to your party. And if we can't, we will try to restore you safely to the lobby. If you go into the combat-y bits, you die there, obviously that's a real death and you will suffer the consequences, which I'll elaborate on in a minute. And if you log out in the combat-y areas while the fighting's in progress, that is also treated as a death. We don't want you somehow managing to kick yourself offline to avoid dying properly. So if you logged off in one of those combat areas during the wave, then we will try to restore you to the place where dead people go. Right, so when you die in there, we've got a place called Purgatory. Purgatory is where the dead go, and you are held there, just locked away in this Purgatory area, watching the rest of the fight going on until the fight ends. If your team completes the wave successfully, then you and everyone else in Purgatory with you will be redeemed and healed and brought out. If the party fails the wave, or they all die and end up in Purgatory as well, then the wave is failed. And at that point, the whole party is kicked out the theatre, losing items as they go. This means that if you logged out in the combat areas of the theatre while the fight's in progress, then you'll log in again, hopefully to find yourself in Purgatory if we can resync you to your party. And from there you may be redeemed at the end of the wave if your party succeeds. But if we can't find the party again, like the whole wave wiped while you were offline, or you logged in again to the wrong world, or the party just moved on too far and we couldn't find it anymore, then I'm afraid we do treat you as having been in a wiped party, and you lose items for that as we kick you out to the lobby. This is because we don't want to have a situation where a player thinks it's not going well, so they just log out and stay offline for a couple of hours in the hope their party will push off and suffer all the penalties, and then they can log in again having skipped all that. So it's nasty, but I don't think we can really work around that one. That's death and log out for you.
Cool.
What did I miss?
Teleporting.
Teleporting. Teleporting. If you are, you're not allowed to teleport from the theatre. All the standard teleport features are blocked because Lady Verzik, she be magic, she stops it. However, she does have a teleport crystal of her very own. There's some substance which has power to teleport out despite it. And there's a mysterious stranger outside who's managed to get hold of some of this, and he will sell you shards of it. So if you want to be able to teleport from the theatre you buy one of these from him. He's got a shop and everything. And you take it in with you. And it's a one-click emergency teleport, the usual sort of thing, like your teletabs, only it takes you out to the lobby. That's the only thing that will let you teleport out of the theatre. So if you want that kind of emergency escape, then you're choosing to buy one of these things from him. They're cheaper than the gravestone fee if you die in there, by the way, but not by a whole lot. And also, you're choosing to spend an inventory slot carrying it around all the time. That's how you get out. That's how you can teleport out the theatre. But home teleport won't work. Emergency teleport tablets, nectar files, they won't work in there. Only Verzik's special crystal can bypass her magic in that way. Which is why she mostly keeps the, the thing in her private places. I mean her private storage places.
And that includes Ring of Life?
Ring of Life doesn't let you teleport out either.
And we should explain the gravestone.
Okay, well, for the sake of players who aren't familiar with one of these, if you lose items on death in the theatre, you will end up in the lobby area, and there's a chest there. You've probably seen us do quite a few such things before. The chest will show you what items were gathered for you when you died, and you must pay a fee. It's 100k on this one, which I think is less than we did on some of the others, because we do think you might be dying here a lot. So yeah, you can retrieve your items from there, or if you don't feel like paying the fee and you don't think your items are worth it, discard them. It will take the fee direct from your bank if you've got your bank pin unlocked, etc. The usual kind of thing, like what Vorkath has.
And if you die and X-log your client and then come back and forget you just died and keep playing the game, what's going to happen?
If you die while you've got stuff in one of these storage places, like the Grotesque Guardians, or like Vorkath, or like whatever that is in the Dream section of Dragon Slayer 2, the items there are lost, like the Zora Priestess.
Yeah.
So you want to collect that stuff and not leave it in there while you do more dangerous things, especially going back in the theatre.
Just to clarify, if you are a hardcore Iron Man and you go to Purgatory,
You've lost it.
is that classed as an unsafe death?
You have died and you have lost your stuff, even if your items are saved by your party redeeming you later in the wave.
There we go.
So do not die. Hardcore Iron people especially might want to take these teleport things in.
Prior to today, there was no fee. We decided on 100k. They're all saying 500.
There was definitely going to be a fee.
There was a fee.
Reclaim loot.
So-
Yeah.
It was 200k originally, and we chose to change it to 100k.
Aren't we nice?
We're such nice people.
We expect people will potentially be dying quite a bit. We all threw around the statistics of how much Torfin made after Dragon Slayer 2.
You did bang.
How much are the vampires going to make from the Theatre of Blood? There's a lot less requirements on doing the Theatre of Blood. You had to do Dragon Slayer 2 to get onto Vorkath, so...
During the quest, was Vorkath... did Torfin charge to return your items during the quest?
Yeah,
I think
he
he did.
charged 100k as well
It was,
for both boss battles, so he was making.
But it was an
bank off people
easier
doing
boss
the quest
battle
as
during
well.
the quest, I think.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad.
And there was
This
Galvin.
one's a fair bit nastier.
Is it going to track how much money you spent getting items back?
I think, well, they all go through the same code, so the Modlotti and her colleagues are able to see where the money's being spent on retrieving items in all the different places. I think they'll be able to see that when you're doing it in this occasion, then your variable says it came from theatre rather than from Vorkath, and she'll be able to see also that you're standing in the lobby area when you click the thing rather than standing on the top of Fossil Island or whatever.
It's worth keeping in mind there is 5 people, up to 5 people in a party, which is a total of 500k every time that a team is wiped. Like you have to think as a group every time that a death occurs within there is a substantial
Yeah,
amount.
I'm just thinking, as an individual trying to track your profit, it might be nice if you could deduct how many times you've died, if there was something that could display how many 100Ks you've paid.
Oh, that'd be nice. I'm afraid we're getting a little late on for adding more
It's a little
features.
last minute.
We're releasing
But-
tomorrow.
but-
Chris.
Right, we could actually postpone the update,
In hindsight, I'll
back
think
another
of this
month
last
or
week.
so, and then
There
we
is-
could have these extra ideas.
There is, if you are interested in statistics, there is a nice little notice board outside the Theatre of Blood itself that ModEd put together, and that shows both your personal statistics and global statistics too. So there's 4 separate statistics here. There is total attempts, so that's the amount of times you go into the theatre. There's total completions, how many times did you make it to the end, which might actually give them that sort of number. for how many times they've failed to get to the end. It doesn't necessarily mean they've died, but and then there is total deaths as well, but that's general deaths. So that's including going to purgatory and being reborn because your team successfully beats the room. And then this is your best time ever. And you have that for yourself and global as well. So you can see how many times the Theatre of Blood's been attempted by everyone across all worlds and how many times it's been beaten. And how many times everyone's died,
Yeah.
which is the one I'm going to keep an eye on.
Looking forward to watching those
that's
numbers go up.
Same.
I
It's
want
one,
to
of the,
see that hit 1 million at some point.
it's one of the more common things that people always ask for stats on and having it in game for you.
Well,
to
that's the
be
thing.
able to see nice and
We track
easily.
this stuff, and then we announce on like Q&As and stuff, and we thought, well, hang on,
Just have it in
why
game.
don't we just show them?
Right. I'm going to move on. Should we straw poll the fee?
Well, I don't see why not.
Let's-
Let's
let's-
see what they actually
Let's
say.
straw poll the fee. 100k, 200k, or
5 mil.
I mean, they're just going to pick the highest one, though. This isn't like...
yeah.
We ain't going with what you straw.
We're going to straw poll it to keep you happy. It doesn't mean that we're going to change it.
Oh, that will really keep them happy. Please send us your opinions and we will throw them away.
We're not going to throw them away. We will take them to heart. But it is coming out tomorrow.
Also, we are leaving it fairly flexible, so if we did want to change it.
It is-
But, you
it
know,
is.
we do expect that when you're going up against bosses you've not seen before, you've not fought before, they do things you might not expect.
Yeah.
And we're not necessarily telling you up front how to even solve some of these challenges. So
Yeah.
you'll find something happens, and you start guessing what you can do about it. And if you guess wrong, you end up paying this fee. That can add up to quite a lot. So saying, you know, $1 mill's a proper fee, that's proper risk. That's really quite an off-putting one to people to try and work out how these things go. We would, of course, have the option of changing the fee after launch. If, you know, after a week of people publishing guides on this thing, then we wanted to put the fee higher up, we could.
Let's see what comes back on this straw poll. We'll discuss it when it comes up.
So-
and let's move on to another. Unless you.
Yeah, just real quick. Realistically, I think for Curse, out of a solid team of 5 people, how many attempts do you think it'll take them to eventually complete it? Like 20?
Total attempts of going out and going back into the theatre.
Yeah. 20, 50, 100? So we're saying we're potentially saying people will be out.
I'd probably lean towards around probably 35, depending on the teams.
Okay. So anything below that or above that, you'll know where you stand.
Cool.
That's very hard to put a number on, but I'll go with
But if that was 1 mil, that's 35 mil you're asking them to do.
Brilliant. So the straw polls come back. The response of what fee do you think is reasonable? 30% said your entire bank, which might be a little bit too harsh. Ironically, the second in second place is 100k, followed by 200k very shortly after, and then 500k. I think 100k is fine to settle with. And if, for whatever reason, we do want to increase that afterwards, we can do that after a couple of days of release.
Totally. I wrote the thing pretty flexible. For what it's worth, can I take the top question on there?
Please do.
How does a disconnect inside the raid affect a hardcore status? So, I know we've covered this, but I'd like to say it again because it's really important. If you log out in the combat areas, it's treated like a death. A death loses you hardcore status. Therefore, you log out in the combat areas of the theatre, you lose your hardcore status. You die in the theatre, you lose your hardcore status, even if your party subsequently redeems you from purgatory by completing the wave successfully. Do not go in there if you're afraid of dying and losing your status. And you might want to invest in one of those teleport crystals that the mysterious stranger outside will sell for you. And if you try to go in the theatre without carrying one of those, it'll start by actually asking, you sure you want to go in without that? Or do you want to go and buy one first? You can disable the warning, but we just thought we'd put it in there for those who might like it.
You can leave as well. So if you're in the corridor areas outside of the fight challenges themselves, you'll find via a vampire that you can speak to there who has a resign option. So you can actually choose to resign and leave the theatre without suffering any consequences should you realise that you want to leave.
If the party is not wiped out, then you can resign.
It's worth keeping in mind, as soon as you enter the barrier, however, that's it. You can't leave that barrier anymore.
Oh yeah, once you walk into the fighty area, you're staying in there until the fight is over or you're dead.
Do you see... Sorry, I'm adding questions.
Yes.
That's all right.
Okay, so there was a suggestion to have the crystal auto I don't know, teleport you
Like a ring of life effect.
if you disconnected. Obviously, we can't do that.
Well, that would mean if we could do that a bit more reliably, then it would be lovely. But normally, by the time the game's decided, yep, you've not been sending signals for quite a while, you're probably disconnected. You probably died a bit before that.
And obviously, it's a bit too early, but do you see any potential for the future with something like a diary to offer a 1 death per day type thing?
You know, people go into a lot of boss areas where carrying an emergency left-click teleport, and they feel that that's a kind of reasonable mitigation for the risk. This is trying to be likewise. It's not trying to be the ring of life that guarantees you'll be taken out if you didn't get to zero too quickly. And while we could add a kind of free resurrection, you know, it's just not something we've done at this point.
Yeah.
And people complaining a few minutes ago, it's not enough risk. Maybe it is quite a lot of risk, especially as you don't always know what the mechanics are going to do to you, and you won't necessarily realise in time to click your emergency teleport.
I reckon if we want this to be the sort of thing that for Iron Men and hardcore Iron Men, that this is a true achievement if you do manage to get those reward items, that something like a free death a day does allow a hardcore to essentially keep going once a day until they die without risking their status. So
Can I just
I
say
prefer to keep that out of this.
asking a question doesn't mean the person asking it wants that. I don't have a hardcore Iron Man. I don't care. I'm just asking a question.
Well, obviously, everything you've ever asked in the last 4 years or so has been everything you wanted, surely.
There's another question in the chat that I want to pull out, asking, will the Dark Beast Slayer task work for
Well,
Standard
I
Seg?
had that on this list.
Yeah.
Which is
Okay.
why I didn't select it.
Fair enough. Well, too late now.
But
Isn't
this is
that
why...
so annoying?
Yeah, I know. Dude, I'm not envious. Okay, I apologise for any time I've ever done that. Because we have been on this question for 20 minutes, and I'm very,
important.
very sorry. It is important, it is.
It's good discussion, though.
It's better that
It
it comes
is.
up naturally than it comes up from a predetermined set
Well,
of questions.
but this person put the effort in on every single
Give
week
them credit.
on
Read the
Wednesday.
question
Go on
out
then.
while we're there.
Do your question.
But well, I know you find it. Oh no, the pressure. I got it. Dentrix asked, do any of the bosses benefit from Slayer helm effects? Like Satetseg, he is a Dark Beast after all.
So what me and Ash chose to do the other day when we were doing the balancing is obviously you've got Seg, that's Dark Beast. You've got, in fact, Verzik herself, who's a vampire.
Yeah.
You've got the spiders, which were classed as a spider. Obviously would suit a spider task.
Bloats and dead.
Bloats and dead.
There's a
but
bat. Zarp is a
Oh,
bat.
technically, Zarp is a
Bat,
bat.
actually,
Zarp
yes,
is a
that's
bat,
true.
yeah.
It's pretty much the majority of the creatures in there ended up falling into some category. What we chose to do was to remove all Slayer categories from the creatures in there, as we don't want any meta for the theatre to really revolve around having to have like a spider or a bat Slayer task,
Yeah.
because it would
Especially a
just
spider
be
one.
frustrating.
Yeah, you'd have to go to Turo a lot to get Spider Slayer tasks.
There's
if it's one of
also
those.
a pretty large variety of things required for the, just in general from what I've seen in Theatre of Blood, the amount of different equipment required that would be beneficial to take along, comparatively. I'm not saying any spoilers. Comparatively to what we may have seen before, may mean that having to take also a salve amulet and also a Slayer helmet and also a.
Also,
etc.
quite importantly, these creatures are not just, well, there's things like spiders in there. They are so not a normal spider.
Yeah.
There's a bat in there, and it is really not, well, it's hardly a bat at all, to be honest. And Sotetseg may have been a dark beast, but every single one of those things in there has come through. It ain't come naturally. And Sotetseg especially has been corrupted by him alchemy and the technology of the vampires. Just as yeah, they are not natural Slayer creatures anymore, and would be different enough that the Slayer assignment does not work for them.
Yeah.
Ed can elaborate on the law if anyone wishes.
Also,
Do you wish me to elaborate on the law?
Well, you've been here on this stream for half an hour, and we should let you talk.
I like the law.
Oh, you like the law?
Give us
Which
one.
one do you want?
One lot. We can
We'll do Zarpus. You want some Zarpus?
Let's do Zarp.
Give us Zarpus.
So Zarpus, he's although he's a bat-like creature, he isn't actually a bat. He is the last surviving of the Yarasa, which are a species of predator that came from the vampire homeworld of Vampirium. The vampires hunted them all down and exterminated them, but he survived, and Lord Draken was He was like, "Wow, this guy's pretty good. He survived our extermination. I respect him. I'm going to let him live, and I'm going to let him chill in our theatre, and I'm going to let him kill humans for a while. That sounds like fun."
Right. I'm going to move on to the next question from Thanks, and he asks, how has previous balancing affected how you've went about balancing the Theatre of Blood?
Previous balancing is kind of difficult because I haven't done that much of it on Old School. So if anyone has on here, like Kieran or Ash,
I think it was
there's
players.
There's a few kind of key points that we've picked up, which is however long we think the players will take to grind through the thing, assume it's probably not going to be as long as that once they're good at it. And we've had a few drop tables before where we thought players would take yay long to kill the thing, so we balanced it based on that time. Then they start getting through it in that kind of time, and the rewards end up coming into the game twice as fast. So we learnt to balance more conservatively. Would have been nice if we got it perfect first time, but hopefully we can put those learning experiences to improve this piece of content.
We don't have 5 people on the team who are incredibly skilled PVMers, so is it worth giving a bit of a shout out to people who helped out with testing in the office?
as in, in the
That
office.
would be...
Yeah.
So yeah, in the office, I put together an internal team of people that have completed essentially that were completing the Chambers of Xeric and other PVM style content and were good at that type of thing. So I'll give shout outs now to them. There's Mod Harrison, Mod Ryan, Mod Rock actually, who's up there, and then it was myself and Kieran as well that were involved in that team.
Well,
It's been awesome to see some like cross-team collaboration with that. Mod Ryan and Mod Harrison both, I can't remember what team they are on, but they both work on RuneScape, but they are big, avid Old School fans in their spare time and are hugely active with Chambers of Xeric, so they were perfectly suited to come over and do some assistance.
Conveniently, the next question was actually now that the balancing is being completed. I hope so. It's being released tomorrow. This. Oh, I should have said his name. Sorry. This is from Sanjin, and he asked, now that it's been properly balanced, have we as JMods actually been able to complete it all the way through properly without cheating?
As a JMod team,
I did it solo, mate.
as a JMod team, since the proper balancing has been done, as a JMod team, we have not gone through and properly completed it now.
I watched, so yesterday, they decided to have the QA team get together, a couple of other people, to do a playthrough. And this was a playthrough where they just turned on cheat mode where they couldn't die. And they
still couldn't do it.
Still couldn't do it. And I'm just sat there watching, like, what are you doing?
To be fair...
There's an attack there, and you just let it hit you.
All right, okay. There was this thing that happened that did a thing, and I wasn't doing the thing to avoid the thing. So
You're useless.
I was just like, let's just end. We're done. We're done here.
So was there a thing?
There was a thing that did a thing, and to
yeah.
avoid the thing, you had to do another thing, and I didn't avoid the thing.
So why didn't you do the thing instead?
Because doing that thing required a lot more effort than not doing
Stop
the thing.
talking about the
Should
thing.
have just done the thing, mate.
So as I know a lot of people already know, people on the Old School team work on the game, making the game. They aren't able to play the game and become experts. So a lot of people are like, wow, you can't even complete it. No, this is top tier PVM content that most of you won't be able to complete. So no, we can't complete it. Instead, we brought in some of the best players in the world to come to the office 3 times. And that was obviously massively beneficial. So no, we're not all great top tier Wooks PVMers.
Also, the kind of balancing this thing needs is to get to the point where some of the best players out there will have been practicing this over and over again for weeks. We are not that good now. Heck, nobody is. So maybe you are.
Tooting your own horn.
I mean, no one had done Inferno. No one had done Inferno inside the office, and I'd like to think we still got that right on launch.
I don't think anybody got a perfect Chambers of Xeric. Maz has put in the chat right there that nobody on release of Jad could even do it. Like, a lot of things we release for you are a lot harder for people like us who aren't, except from Chris. Evidently,
People
who is
like
the best.
us.
Now.
But
I reckon we could have done raids 2 in a little gym.
I think
team.
I think we
we
could have
could-
done it.
practice, with
I think we
practice.
could have done it.
Our official JMod team, we could have done it.
Yeah, of course, because postponing the launch until we've had enough time to practice it might be quite a long time.
But again, it's a big hand to the player visits we've done. We did a player visit back with Inferno, that helped balance the numbers and get that right. We did a player visit for Vorkath. We've had 2 player visits for Theatre of Blood, and they're so instrumental in making sure that we've got the numbers right, especially, and get to make sure the difficulty is there and what it needs to be. Generally, the quality is going to be a lot higher at launch because of those guys.
So, for those wondering, we did 3 different play tests with bringing people over to the office. The first one was the streamer one, I believe the content creator one. What they played wasn't actually tested content yet. What we were looking was to test the mechanics and make sure everything was working, not so much, you know, how much food they were going to use per room or anything like that. So that was obviously massively beneficial, and they're fine to play the content on release because things have changed significantly, and they have no idea what they're getting up against. They have a slight idea, but not much. The other player visits with those guys, I believe they've been asked to wait until the first completion to start streaming it.
I believe so.
Unfortunately, one person was involved in both of those player visits. That's Dead Wilson. So unlucky to him, but thank you very much for offering so much time.
Your feedback was very
Yeah.
invaluable. It was
Very.
extremely useful.
Oh yeah.
Moving on, CR7 asks, how long do you expect the average kill to take?
For the full raid?
The full
Completion
raid, the
time.
full completion.
So, what you're going to see in game, should you actually get through, is that we keep track of a time for you. That time is only the time that each boss fight itself takes and doesn't account for the time you'll spend in corridors. And essentially we keep a running total from each room you complete, which lets us pull times together for how long is this boss taking, how long is this boss taking, etc. And at the end, we expect that time will probably be sitting around, I reckon it'll get it down to 20 to 25 minutes. But obviously then you can add on several minutes as well for running through, looting chests, sharing out loot and whatnot as well per run.
2025, really, that low?
Yeah.
When they've practiced.
They went down there really good.
As Ash alluded to earlier,
Went there, we'll get...
think what you think
yeah.
they'll do and then take some more minutes off.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what kind of items they bring in tomorrow.
Yeah, me too.
Garlic or circles, you know.
Don't tell them about the garlic circle combination.
Yeah, no, don't.
You actually, you can headless arrows and garlic. You can tip them.
If you eat garlic before you go in, all the vampires will do less damage.
If you eat garlic, I suppose if you put it in a potato, maybe.
You need a special breathe attack where they don't like the smell and run away.
Sarah asks, how difficult is the Theatre of Blood aim to be? Combat level, equipment, tier recommendations, without spoilers, preferably?
You're definitely looking towards the higher end of what we'd expect for PvM ability and stats and gear. So,
In addition to the in-game skills, you'll need a reasonable degree of personal skill, your control of your character. That will be very important, as well as your stats and equipment.
I think it's obviously not so much a question of gear and stats, more PvM ability.
Yeah.
So a better question might be to compare it to Chambers of Xeric. Would you say that an average player who is okay at Chambers of Xeric would be okay also at Theatre of Blood?
I would say it's fairly similar, but a little harder, and it's not as lenient on deaths. So with Chambers of Xeric, you can obviously keep dying. You can keep going through the rooms and carry on and get through. You're just going to have 0 points at the end and not really get any reward for it. With this, you're going to have a harsh time on that. If your whole team dies, you're kicked back out, right? You're going to have to start the whole thing again. If you die on boss 6, you need to start again at boss 1. So the circumstances, I think, make it a lot harder. But I'd say the skill set, if you can be taking on Alm, you're going to be pretty much just fine with a lot of the mechanics in this, I'd expect.
Something we said when we pitched this back at RuneFest was Chambers of Xeric, I think, is more suited for, or more suitable for a solo player, somebody who's really good, can carry their way through it. Whereas with this, you're really going to want everybody on your team to actually be decent. You're going to have a very hard time, even if you're amazing, carrying people who don't know what they're doing.
Well, we answered this last week, but I think it carries on with what you just said. It comes from Goob, and it's the theatre is designed for 5 people, but how possible is it with less people? How does it scale, in particular?
So you'll find that the boss's stats don't scale, etc. So we would say it doesn't scale in general, but certain mechanics act a little differently with different team sizes, just to account for not being intentionally impossible in small team sizes. That pretty much covers it without really giving anything away.
Yeah.
But expect it to be easier in larger teams, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you are welcome to go in there solo if you want to.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind the risk, and if you just want the music tracks, maybe. But which you can get in the spectator area, by the way. I just don't think anyone's going to complete it solo anytime soon.
Yeah, so
Possibly ever.
like where we've chosen to put in some scaling, it's like if we balance a mechanic and we put it in there and it works well for 5-man and it would just be impossible for 3-man or ridiculously simple for 5-man was a reasonable chance to make it so that it's interesting for all party sizes.
Yeah, there was one where if we made it the same for parties of all sizes, and for a 5-person team, then it would be really quite boring and trivially easy, and they'd have, I think, a good 2 minutes of doing something very, very straightforward. We, therefore, accelerate stuff a bit to make it not be that way.
Certain mechanics where we spawn one thing per player and things like that.
One of the things we said in the beginning, which we're still saying now, but people are still calling it Raids 2, is this isn't by any means a Raids 2, whereas Chambers of Xeric is Raids 1. Chambers of Xeric is great at allowing people, as many people as you want, to go, well, almost, to go in and take on some challenging content. This is something completely different. It's linear, there's no skilling, it's vastly different in every way, so it's not to say this is Raids 2.
No, it's just the second raid style.
It's our second raid, yeah.
Cool. So essentially,
It's Raids 2. It's nothing like Raids. It's nothing like Raids 1.
Yeah, it's there they're there to complement each other. I mean, it gives you 2 choices of different raid encounters that you guys can get to go and play. If you get a bit bored of Chambers of Xeric, you know there's a completely different raid now called the Theatre of Blood.
Main difference would probably be lack of randomization and no skilling.
I think doing the exact same thing again, it doesn't offer you that diversity.
Yeah.
If you want that thing, do Chambers of Xeric.
Now you have a choice.
We'd probably have expanded Chambers of Xeric if we wanted to write the exact same thing again.
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest difference for me is the lack of teamwork, I think, or rather the opposite, the necessity of teamwork.
Comparatively
in Theatre of Blood, yeah.
Xeric. Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, stats of the bosses themselves don't change. They are static, but mechanics that would require it to have a set amount of people does scale. Is that the easy way of saying without spoiling?
Which means also that it's working on the size of the party at the beginning of the raid. So in the cases where we've adapted the mechanics based on how many people turned up, we're basing it on how many people turned up at the start, even if some of them, I don't know, gave up and ran away halfway through.
Cool. Right. Bob asked, this is a really good question, I don't know why I put it so far down, but Bob asked, is there anything that didn't make it into the final release? Anything cut that you wish that you didn't, if you had more time? Bosses, rooms, etc.?
My initial pitch was like 10 rooms, 13 rooms or something stupid.
We had a good 15 decent designs for rooms, I think.
And
I think that's the
a
best
bunch
way to
of
go
them-
about it.
A bunch of them were just the same idea, just slightly different. I was just kind of saying, like, whichever one of these we like the most. And what we've kind of managed to do is, I think, take a bunch of those and take the best parts from each of them. And then a bunch of other people have come in and made some really incredible contributions.
Yeah,
So-
we started with that list of 15 or so and started by voting for our own favourite ones.
There was a room that I think I mentioned on a stream once involving a large key being carried. That one obviously isn't in there.
You might have mentioned that at RuneFest even.
You did.
Did I? Was
Yeah.
that might have been the room
That was
fest
the-
pitch.
That was your example.
Sorry.
Oh well, we've got plenty of ideas for future content.
Raids 3.
Also, the infrastructure behind underlying all
Raids
this, I kind of wrote it expandable if one wants to plug more stuff in.
Yeah, the interface for party gathering, they've seen it before already, but it's
Yeah.
really, really good.
I think it would have actually ended up being excessive if we had a load more.
I don't believe in too much.
Generally, no, but I think you'd have been looking at it like, if there's 10 rooms,
Yeah.
every time you die on the 9th room, it's going to become even more annoying,
Yeah.
and it makes it quite a long encounter process.
And it's not like it's a small wave.
You'd probably want to change up the way you go through them rather than just being directly linear. And
Yes.
maybe split the path a little bit more than...
Or let you buy a
That we
pass
do.
to the 5th room or something if there were 15. Mind you, that from the guy who wrote the Inferno.
But I guess comparatively though, like a wave, although it takes a bit of time, even in the Inferno, a wave is a lot smaller comparatively mechanically compared to a boss that you'll find in the Theatre of Blood.
You're still looking at like 1 to 2 hours
Yeah.
plus for Inferno.
Yeah, I imagine it hurts when you a wave like.
And people do hurt when they
Yes.
die on Zuck Wave and have to start again, so...
Cool.
Can I take a question from?
Of course you can.
So there's one that says, can Iron Men play with normal players? Yep, any type of Iron Man can group up with normal players.
That's why we went to a lot of trouble to make sure that leeching wasn't very well rewarded, if at all. Although I believe you've given some very specific rewards for people who appear to be leeching.
Yes, and so
You'll know it when you
you'll see it when you get it.
And we wrote you a little letter to tell you what we thought of you as well. We've written quite a few letters, in fact, from the vampires rewarding
I
you.
really
all.
like that. It was a nice touch. Who written them? Wrote them.
I wrote 10 or so. Did anyone else write any?
I just wrote one for this.
I think then they're the ones I wrote, including the perverted one.
They're pretty good. What is the release time for tomorrow? I think it's a fair question asked in the chat.
We have
Estimated?
tweeted.
We tweeted around. We're
If you-
aiming for 11:30.
Yep.
I was going to say they should follow at Old School at Old School RS on Twitter, and maybe get some more followers.
Ashes was better. Go do that.
11:30 a.m. BST.
Which isn't that big a surprise because I think we've done all the last 3 updates at that time too.
Yeah, we're pretty consistent.
That's the plan. You know, unexpected things happen. It's big internet out there, and sometimes we run into unexpected problems. And if we run into one of those, it'll be a delay. But in the grand scheme of Theatre of Blood, we expect it to be around for quite a long time. So if it's held up even by an hour or two, hopefully you're good.
But just keep your eye out on Twitter. We'll be putting out comms as we go on there. If there is a delay, that'll be where we
Yeah.
firstly let
At
you know
Old
what's
School
going on.
RS, follow it, please.
I'm going to steal one more question.
Go.
Do you think one defense purists have a chance?
One defense skills have done the Inferno, so I'm not ruling anything out.
Okay.
Is all I'm going to say.
Can you get there as a one defense pure?
Can a one
You need-
defense pure get in
You need
Mauritania?
15 prayer,
I think you there's a prayer.
Oh yeah, prayer. Yeah.
but I'm not putting it past them.
Well, when Wooks goes in there with a bunch of flowers and solos the whole thing, then
There we go. Right, time for raids 3,
Yeah,
guys. It's all
don't-
over.
I don't really see anything that would stop a one defense pure
we
doing.
can run in real life Shroud thing.
It's not wanting a one defense pure.
Yeah, I think that you might be a little bit harder done by if you go and you're a max pure compared to if you're a max player. You're not as good to take, but yeah, I think they'll do it at some point. Jim asks, is the Justiciar armor classed as Sarah Dominist in God Wars?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'll give you protection. Awesome. Eralter asks, are there any Easter eggs you can reveal within the Theatre of Blood?
You're gonna find
If it was an Easter egg,
Fine,
then we shouldn't
yeah.
do that.
Well, hold on. Mod Rice spoke. Say again?
I just said no.
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 Okay, can you perhaps
I'm adding
mention
one.
that?
Don't say
There,
it.
there are Easter eggs.
There
but
are
they've got
Easter
to
eggs.
find them.
Yes.
There's no Easter eggs.
0 Easter eggs.
There's Easter eggs.
There we go.
No.
There's an argument about whether there's Easter eggs or not.
Kieran, can I add one?
Go for it.
Sure.
If it's good.
Now.
Question for everyone, but I think Chris may have a nice big answer for this one. It's from Nick. Where does the inspiration for any of the rooms and bosses come from? Where does your main inspiration come from?
Sure. So I've played a few other games. Obviously, some of them have raids, some of them have mechanics that I haven't been able to find in Old School. So it wasn't so much a direct, just like, oh, cool, let's do that. It was more like, how can this work with Old School? And I think it was explained well when we did Chambers of Xeric. As typically, you think of raids maybe in other games, you think of something that might take hours of time. Whereas Chambers of Xeric is not hours of time, but it's still one of the best received pieces of content we've ever done, and massively successful. So it's not to say that we need to do what other games are doing with their raids. Rather, we can be inspired by and put our Old School twist on it. So, yeah.
We're a very different game, and making such a concept work for us
Yeah.
wasn't straightforward. And it's, to be honest, it impresses me to this day that we got Chambers of Xeric so well received.
Yeah.
Cool.
I shocked a lot of people to have a raiding dungeon that, is more on the scale of less than half an hour than days of time.
And also one that sometimes you get parties of well over 50 going in there, even if it's mostly small ones, and the big parties seem to have a good time too.
There's a lot of credit to that, to the content creation side of it, I think personally. It's really fun content to watch. And I'm expecting the same with this, at least.
I'm really looking forward to watching everybody tomorrow on like a multi-Twitch stream and seeing everybody go in for the first couple of times, see how that goes. Question from the chat, is the Twisted Bow uncapped like it is in Raids 1?
Go find out.
Good response.
For what it's worth, in Raids 1, Chambers of Xeric, if you will, since apparently we don't like calling the two Raids dungeons 1 and 2, The NPCs in Chambers of Xeric scale their stats based on who goes in, which means that a party of 100 people might have rocked up in there, and the NPCs would respond by scaling themselves pretty darn big. That's not a thing here, because firstly, there can only be 5 of you. Secondly, we're not scaling the stats at all. So it was a lot less relevant to handle insane stat numbers like you could have got in Xeric's place.
Cool.
Also, Twisted Road comes from Xeric's place, so it is a little bit more fitting.
If our team, again from the chat, if our team has Iron Men and normal accounts, can Iron Men pick up? They presume boss potion drops, but I'm going to go ahead and say the chests that you get supplies from.
You get given any rewards you're given are given directly to you via a chest. There are no drops from NPCs of that nature.
Cool.
Not supplies anyway.
Can I get my music kit back just from spectating? Is another chat question.
Yes.
You can.
Cool. Are the rewards from the dev blog from March and April the final rewards we get tomorrow? Has there been any tweaks or changes from them?
So ones who passed the poll. So we've got the Bastion and Battle Mage potions. We've then got the Avernic Defender, the Justiciar, I don't know, Justiciar armor. There's the Sanguinesti Staff. There's the Avernic Defender. There's the Grazi Rapier. Did I say that one twice, did I?
Yeah.
And then there's the Scythe of Vitor. And then there's the Avernic Defender.
And then there's the Shroud as well.
And then the Shrouds
Hang
for
on,
number of completions
you
as
forgot
well.
about the Avernic Defender.
I did
Oh,
so you
said
did.
that.
He said it.
Yeah.
As I recall, there's something we needed to do around this time, is there not?
Oh yes, there is actually.
My dad's gonna dab.
Are we talking? Are you talking about music by any chance?
What?
I guess
didn't
not.
say a word, mate.
Because I thought we were going to play the music right at the very end.
Yeah.
Whenever you want to play it, Jeff.
Excellent. Okay,
That's
then we'll
absolutely
keep asking a couple of the chat questions for the next 3 minutes. Is that okay?
Well, whatever you want.
Okay, great.
Your wish is my command.
I'll get you a pint.
There's a great one in the chat right
Okay.
now, comparing the difficulty to that of Solak or
So-
Telos.
Okay,
Yes.
so I did the balancing on Telos, which makes this interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I did a bit of the playtesting for Solak, but comparing RS content when it comes to PVM to Old School content is very difficult to do. But in terms of between the two games, I'd probably put it at a midpoint between the two because of the mechanics we've kind of got in the raid.
Well, really good question in the chat that you can actually use as a comparison in terms of final boss, Olm versus Verzik.
I think the Olm would have trouble fighting Verzik.
Which would you say is more difficult?
It's not
Personally?
really intended for soloing.
Which one would I say is more difficult? I would say that Verzik is more difficult.
Mechanically?
I would
depends
say that
on-
Verzik is more difficult.
I
Yeah.
agree.
That's all I'm
Okay.
saying.
Okay. I'm being very careful not to ask things that you will say a spoiler to, but some of these questions are a little bit. Ballpark estimate of how many times you as a team have play tested Theatre of Blood? How many times have we done that internally if we went all the way through?
Internally, with the main race team, we've had quite a few playthroughs, but it wasn't just loads of full run-throughs. There was like, as we got new things coming in, it was test that, I'll get our feedback on it, tweak it, and then tweak it before the players got here.
And a significant focus on one boss at a time.
Yeah,
for
so there was a lot of focus on that, but when we did the playthrough afterwards, we gave it quite a good few hours, but it's quite difficult to get everybody together when everybody's busy.
Also, it's not like it's fully released and then you get the finished product.
Yeah,
You're testing
exactly.
one room at a time whenever
Yeah.
it's done.
When it's dev,
Sometimes you're
test
doing
it,
that
yeah.
before the art's even done for it.
Exactly.
So it's a lot different from a player jumping in.
Yeah. This is going to be my last question, I think, so I can just give a little plug tomorrow so that Modstone will be happy that I've done it. Tomorrow there is going to be a live stream, I believe, from 4 to 7?
4 to 6.
4 to 6, not 7, 4 to 7, of Mod Aiza and somebody else, I
You'd
believe.
think a host would be
Modstone.
equipped with the correct
They've not given me
information.
the information on this.
Mod
This is
Aiza and a
last minute.
special secret guest.
Mod Aiza and a special guest.
Who is one of our J-mods.
Will be reacting, yeah. They'll be reacting to everybody's streams. They'll be seeing everybody go into the theatre the first few times, so tune in for that. I'm not sure if there'll be a live stream specifically of us reacting to watching it. I know that when we did the Inferno, we had a stream inside of the atrium where we were watching and we were all clapping, and then they failed and we all got sad and we had to wait another 70 minutes until we got to the end of the waves. Don't think we're going to be doing that. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you very much for watching and remind you all, Summer Special, 3 for 2 Bonds, one more time. Theatre of Blood is out tomorrow. Please do show all of your appreciation to the fantastic team that has worked on it. Good job, guys. I've not worked on it, so I can say that. So really, well done.
What were you doing the last 2 days then?
Oh, well, I was testing RC. That doesn't count, I think. And yeah, we're going to leave you with that musical melody, I think, of the entire Theatre of Blood. It's 8 minutes long, mod Surma, mod ENT. Let them know on Twitter as well if you like it or not. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.
See you tomorrow.